Tara Brown and the Swinging London Colour Revolution by Vic Jannam. Chapter 8. 1964 brought us Dave Berry, Poison Ivy, and Manfred Mann. Chuck Berry had another highly skilled hit. There was Major Lance, John Layton, a much softer Hollies, the Swinging Blue Jeans, New Orleans, the Mojos with Everything's Alright, more Manfred Mann, and the Animals. Suspicion was an incomprehensible hit. Then we had the Amazing Denizens and Buddy Holly sending us more music from heaven. We celebrated a great Little Richard comeback, got some serious music from Howlin' Wolf and John Lee Hooker. There were the Pretty Things, the Beach Boys got everybody on the dance floor. The Kinks were all over the place. We had the Zombies. There was Jimmy Reed showing Jagger how it's done. More Animals. And not to forget Hines, Spencer Davis and Georgie Fay. Lots of great music. Marianne Faithfull sang As Tears Go By. And little by little, pop music was growing a hard edge and certain honesty in its lyrics. In 1964, there was a new club at Leicester Place called the Ad-Lib. It very quickly established itself as the place to be for all the bands that were becoming famous. Nicki and I wasted little time setting up shop, and as so often, I would spend my nights there bringing people together. One day, I met Mike McGeer of the cabaret band Scaffold. His accent left no doubt he was from Liverpool, and when he started bragging somewhat about his musical abilities, it was late and we were all on something after all, I joked, "Why aren't you with the Beatles then?" To my surprise, Mike said, "My brother already is, and they didn't want two of the same family for obvious reasons." While I got he was joking, I had no idea whose brother he might be. "You don't look like any of them," I said, "but you sound like all of them." "Why don't you guess then?" "Why don't I get you another glass and you tell me?" And so, in a cozy corner of the Ad-Lib, Mike told me he was Paul McCartney's brother, and that he hadn't wanted to use his family name because he was looking to have his own career, not be the brother of. He'd wanted to keep the Mac in, though, and had settled for McGeer. Mike was good fun to be around, as might be expected from a humorist. He knew how to turn a bland situation into something funny and was great at tongue-in-cheek remarks. Regarding myself as an expert in these fields, I loved taking up arms and fight him in a friendly battle for the wisecrack of the evening. Since he was his brother, he would also introduce me to Paul when some Beatles dropped in one evening. They were very busy being famous that year and would come only ever so often. They were sat at a table together, Paul, John, and Ringo. Mike came up and said, "Paul, I want you to meet Tara Brown. Tara knows everybody in London, so in case the Beatles hype is over soon, he can hook you up with a new band." Ringo thought it funny, but John shot back, "And how's your little project coming, baby brother?" He was a bit drunk and not in a great mood. He had that often, I learned over time. He needed input to keep his spirits going, and while I was willing to give some, he would never approach me. I guess he found me undeserving of his attention. Paul was different. He looked in little like his brother. While both handsome men, Mike had the adult face, with straight, thick eyebrows and a square jaw. Paul's, of course, was round, as were his eyebrows. They liked each other's company and seemed to feel little brotherly envy. Being close in age, this struck me as more significant than the fact that I had let my much older brother Garrick show me the way in the practice of carving out an independent childhood for oneself, an arrangement that ended when I sensed he was turning serious. Garrick wanted other things in life, and he pursued them successfully. He would rightly so be considered a major force in the promotion of Irish music and culture. Paul was a funny guy. He was full of energy and jumped from one topic to the next with ease when he spoke. I found him sweet and honest and not too bothered with the world beyond his horizon. We chatted for a while and then other people needed his attention and he excused himself. By then, John and Ringo had gone and I turned my eyes to the room. There were plenty of people in need of acquainting, and I, 19 years old and on speaking terms with the Beatles, felt strong and up to the task. I was the macher. I got to see Paul a lot, up to the point where we would work appointments around his busy schedule. We both felt very much at ease in our company and had great evenings smoking dope and talking endlessly about music and clothes and cars. He said he liked sports cars, but he wasn't a fast driver. I was. I had followed up Glenn's advice and gone looking for a race I could enter with a roadster. I had recently acquired a Lotus Elan, an exquisitely modern-looking, small, fast, open car that I yearned to test against other cars and drivers. The car came as a construction box, and I had a mechanic up in Notting Hill build me mine. I was there to see how it was done and would repeat the trick a couple of times over, including for my beloved wife, who had fully found again her place in the thick of it. The Elan was a two-seater roadster with an ultralight fiberglass body for maximum speed and lethality. That last bit was somewhat of a joke doing the rounds. At the same time, it made driving one the ultimate tour de force on Britain's public roads. There was nothing but skill between you and the shoulder, so you had better use it to the fullest. I was not driving a Formula One Lotus like Jim, but I was equally unprotected. Seatbelts considered optional, the Elan definitely became dangerous at high speeds, that famous English phrase meaning how fast one can possibly go over medieval roads. I wasn't phased, of course not. It was what I was looking for. We would test ourselves at Brands Hatch, an improvised racetrack just outside of London on Kent territory. In 1964, it was even going to host the British Grand Prix, which used to be held at Silverstone. We were going to be there, of course, if only to see our hero Jim Clark again. Not sure how serious I had to be about the discipline and sacrifice of sport, I chose to start my own career with a one-off road race on home turf, just south of Lugala. If that one worked out fine, I figured, I might be able to persuade some of the family to advocate freeing funds for my new hobby. There was a complicating factor, though. Nicki was very much against the adventure. She found it incomprehensible that I was going to risk my life right after having become a father. You should have figured that out for yourself, mister. My argument that it would allow me to drive more slowly on public roads could not convince her. That's the stupidest excuse I've heard in a long time. She looked at me with some disgust, as if my remark had offended her. It hurt to see my love this way, but that's what you get when a woman says no. I wasn't going to waste time on changing her mind, as it would be fruitless most likely, and simply pleaded with her to let me race just once. I probably have the fastest car, so I'll be able to take it easy. She gave in, and on a hot May day I presented myself in Rathdrum, County Wicklow, knowing I needed to win this race under all circumstances, as there would likely be no second chance for me. My car was nearly disqualified for sporting an unsafe windshield, but we managed to get it out on time, and I raced with my face full in the wind. I turned my jacket backside front to get the best possible projection. The race itself was easy, as promised. I was much faster than most, and my car did the rest. I easily beat the field of MGs, Cortinas, Coopers and Alfa Romeos, all tuned up, but none of them reaching the levels I had extracted from the Lotus. I accepted my trophy and went home, knowing I wasn't going to be a race driver. I wasn't going to race Jim Clark. I was going to stay a trendsetter and a father. Life was going faster by the week. We still counted weeks in those days, and there really was no place for little Dorian in our lives. But we all lived under the same roof, and I didn't feel my mother had treated her children any differently. Sorry, kids, but you need a certain age to be thrown in with the adults. You will, though, don't worry. Yet for the moment, you must be with your nanny. She will teach you how to speak, and then we will tell you what to say. One day in June, I bumped into Davy Jones and Mark Feld, somewhere on the far side of King's Road. Davy Jones, of course, you know already, and Mark, who now went by the name of Toby Tyler, was the waiter from the Two Eyes Coffee Bar. Most of all, they were two struggling London pop musicians looking for a break. I invited them for a drink, which they gladly accepted. They had locked friendship over a shared wall paint job at their manager's office in Denmark Street, and then started going out together. I noticed they really liked each other. They both wanted to be stars, and they feared the other to be successful, yet they also honestly wished each other luck. Davy Jones, who knew which way the wind was blowing, tried to see the fun of it all, while Mark Feld was mostly serious about his options. It's his voice, Davy said. Mark has a voice, a tremor if you like, that no one has. If the kids dig it, he will be big. He laughed spontaneously. It's how I sing, Toby said modestly, to bring emotion to the words. He sang a few lines as an example. Summer ends and needs start dying. You hear a robin crying. He knows where the sun is hiding. To another nest he's flying. You gave the reason. That's from a song I'm planning to record. Cool. He had his tremor rather well controlled, and it made sense to some extent. What about you, Davy? I have a single with my band The Kingbees. It's called Liza Jane. It's a real cool song, but I don't think many people are going to buy it. Why not? Davy Jones could have answered in myriad ways and never tell the truth, as the truth had become off limits ever since he was handed the prospect of future stardom. He realized that and simply said, "It's hard competing with the big acts. They absorb all people's spending power." I now realized how it was done. Sir John had each of us provided with information prematurely, to see if we were able to sit on it. If not, we would be out and our stories denied. But if you stayed the course, you might get picked up one day. Davy seemed to have come to the same conclusion. Mark laughed. I told you to believe in your magic, Dave. At some point, someone will pick up your song and share it with friends, and if enough people like it, you will enter the charts after all. That's how I am seeing my record coming. But why Toby Tyler? I asked. That's the boy who ran with the circus, right? The children's book. I believe it was put on film not so long ago. It was, Mark affirmed. Don't you like my name? I don't. I shocked him, but he defended well with his strong self-belief. It is childish, Mark, and you don't need that. Listen to an older friend. Older? You? I was born during the war, sort of. And I walked the tables of prominent individuals and had them feed me words and wine at an age when you were still getting used to your first knickerbockers. I lived through the 50s consciously, the lot of them. I'm therefore already in my second happening decade. I'm starting to feel old. You're not quite 20 yet, are you? 19. I know it sounds young, but do not forget the romantics all died well before their 40s, and many of them around 20. It was considered honorable. You aren't going yet, are you? Mark asked, somewhat anxious. Of course not. I'm here to stay, and I don't want to hear about Toby Tyler too often. I do want to hear about Mark Feld, though. But that's the point, Mark cried. I don't want to be Mark Feld. Why not? It sounds good. It sounds Jewish. So what? You are Jewish, aren't you? Yes, but I don't want people to know. It's not what I am about. I'd rather be Mark with a C. Well, then be Mark with a C. Don't worry, nobody's going to notice. That was not a nice thing to say, and it wasn't needed. Both Mark and Davy were unbearably sweet young men, harbingers of a new idea that was growing around town, that being nice should be enough to get you somewhere. I wasn't going to repute that, so I might as well apologize. Can I perhaps make up with a decent meal, something you haven't had in a while? I proposed. Naturally you can, Davy said quickly. He'd seen his mate grow somewhat angry over my last remark and wished to seal peace. Just be yourself, chap, I offered. Toby is a joke. You can play it once, but you can't get a career out of it. So it's useless, it's a gimmick. People told me it might be funny, Mark replied. Sure it might, but that isn't the question. The question is, will they eat you alive if you give them the chance? You mean the question is, will I let them come as far as where it's getting dangerous? Mark didn't strike me as quite as smart and multi-talented as young Mr. Jones, but he had that conviction of his. He made it very difficult for you not to wish him the best in his quest for success. That is something I have come to see over a number of years being around successful artists and musicians. Many of them had this magic quality that made you want to be interested in them, irrespective of their artistic abilities. They had star appeal. Mark certainly had it, and so had Davy. Star appeal without any talent usually ended up in embarrassment, yet that didn't seem to be the problem in their respective cases. I took them to a nearby Indian restaurant I knew well. They both ate marvelously and began sharing anecdotes of early band life. Mark seemed to have a clear idea of where his music was going to take him, while Davy was all over the place with his thoughts. I'm into everything, he said, with that wry, knowledgeable smile of his. I pick up on a trend and see what I can do with it. Which is not considered a recipe for success, Mark lectured his pal. People will remember you as the guy who didn't know what to do with himself. I know, said Davy. I'm still collecting ideas. I feel I'm not ready yet to have my own ideas. There's so much going on, so much to nick from.